What's up, you guys? Welcome back to our channel today. Today's video is going to be a little bit different.
Yes, you can probably tell by the title of this video, we are diving into infertility today.
But it's going to be happy, it's going to be hopeful, it's going to be good.
You guys, okay, so as many of you guys have been following our infertility journey, it has been quite the journey.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack with our story, and I feel like over the years we've shared bits and pieces of it, but something that's been really important to Jared and I is ever since getting our Azoospermia male factor infertility diagnosis is sharing more about that.
Exactly, and the thing is that if you guys are new to our channel, this is probably the best video for you, especially if you're dealing with infertility or if you know someone that is.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole purpose of this video, so I just want to set the stage. We have some exciting stuff going on with our fertility journey that we're going to get to here in a few weeks, but this is not that video. This is a video for those going through infertility. We hope you find this video. We hope YouTube does its thing and you're able to find this video, because that's the whole point of it. We want to hopefully relate with you, hopefully give you some, as Jared mentioned, hope. Yes. Hope and comfort in knowing that you're not alone. And because this is a very, very hard journey to be on.
And for those of you who've been with us for a little while and seen some of our videos, you guys know that we have talked about some of these things before, but never like all collectively like this. And typically when we did first talk about it is when we first found out. And so we were kind of very raw, very emotional, and it's kind of...
It's hard to watch.
It's hard to watch,
It's hard for us to watch. And
it's very emotional.
So yeah, because for any of you that are new here just watching for the first time, so we do vlogs. We kind of have vlogged a lot of our journey, and as you can imagine, this was a really shocking diagnosis, and we did kind of share.
We found out quick.
We filmed a little bit here and there of us, like our feelings during that time, and it's just, as you know, it's very emotional. It's hard to watch.
And something we always want to do is kind of like dive more into like the information, but like in a relatable way, especially after we've already gone through it. And I think that's like one of the things, especially like, I guess it doesn't really matter what platform you're on, but I feel like that male factor infertility is just not discussed. And I mean, it is a little bit, but it's very, very hard to find. And so that's why we want to be able to use our platform, especially since we're going through it, to hopefully reach out to those that are going through it and to be able to relate with them.
Yes, and especially as couples, right? Because there's the guy perspective, there's the girl perspective.
I know.
And it's just all a lot. Sometimes it's hard to talk about. Honestly, I think that's a big reason why it's not talked about a lot, because it's personal information. But we have realized, like, at the end of the day, it needs to be talked about, because if it's not, then you feel so alone, and it's even worse. Like, it makes it even worse, a hard thing even harder to go through. So we're gonna have a few videos diving into kind of our story, but this one will be focused on just getting our Azoospermia diagnosis. So just a little brief history about our infertility journey. We have several videos on our channel you can go back and watch, but basically for a little over 3 years, we always thought it was something on my end. And it was during COVID, we moved at that time, we got a new doctor that I was seeing via FaceTime.
Yeah, it was like
the perfect storm.
The worst of the worst.
Yes, the perfect storm of like thinking, okay, it's been a year, like we're fine, you don't need to worry, to the next year it was COVID, so then I couldn't really see a doctor.
And it's like, is it timing, like what's going on?
Timing, and then we even asked about getting Jared tested, and she asked his age and said, no, that should be fine, he's a healthy young guy.
And it's so funny, because like looking back for like the guy, it's like you have to do one test. Yeah. And it's like, just get it done, you know?
And now if we were to go to an infertility specialist, I think most recommend you get that done first, just to like check that off, that it's not that. But for us, we hadn't seen an infertility specialist. I was just going to a gynecologist at that point.
Well, we didn't think that we were dealing with infertility, you know? Like we just didn't know.
Well, for a long time, anyway, so there's a lot to it, but that's a brief background. We got to the point that this was back in December of 2022, that we had finally said, okay, let's go see an infertility specialist. We need to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
And so we live here in Florida right now, but the clinic we were going to was out in Utah. And so we actually flew out there, and we were so excited Like, I feel like we were just both so ready to find out, like, what was going on. And, like, you know, you go there, I was hoping they'd kind of find out what was wrong and we could just either take some things or it was timing or whatever it was.
I still remember, like, walking in there, like, we were so excited, kind of, like, documenting it a little bit because, like, we were just like, oh my gosh, like, we're going through this journey. It's going to be, like, you know, so hopeful and just going to turn out so successful. And, you know, we're going to start our family. And anyway, all these, like, super high hopes walking into this building thinking that, like, here we are starting our family.
Yes.
And within an hour or two, that did a complete 180.
Oh, 180. So before the appointment, we had actually ordered at-home testing for Jared, and we read it, and I remember it said, like,
inconclusive,
0, and we're like, maybe we did the test wrong, because we were like, no way, like.
Yeah, so we actually had, it came like a 3-pack, I do remember that, and we, you know, tried again like another week or so, and anyway, it came back like the same thing, inconclusive. That's when we started getting,
we were a little nervous.
A little bit nervous, but still pretty hopeful because, like, we just didn't really know much about infertility.
Because there was no, like, signs that there would be anything wrong.
Exactly.
With you. Like, there was nothing that we would ever think. So, from that point of view, and I feel like a lot of you probably are in the same boat with that. Like, there's no signs that something like that could have happened. Like, there wasn't anything that showed that.
And especially with, like, infertility, I think for most people, their minds goes instantly to, like, the female side of things. They don't really think about the male side of things.
You guys, and for any of you that did not know, do you know that almost 50% of all infertility cases have some male factor related component to it?
I mean, it totally makes sense. I mean, there's, you know.
Half and half,
exactly,
but it's just, as we mentioned, it's just not talked a lot about. So hopefully that gives you some comfort knowing that it happens. It's very common. It's just that it's not talked about a ton. So, rewinding back, so we actually did that at-home one a few weeks before our appointment because they wanted to have like a basis. So we're like, let's do the at-home one. We tried that, so we're a little bit nervous. So then the day before the appointment, he actually went to the clinic and got a sample and then took it back in. And so they had the results for when we went into our first appointment for that. So we got some like blood work done and things like that, and then we went and sat down with the doctor. And when we went and sat down with the doctor, it was like being all hopeful to like having everything shattered within a matter of like 60 seconds. Oh, like seconds. I mean, it was just like, he basically told me that my body just didn't produce any sperm. I didn't have any sperm at all. And that's a condition when your body isn't producing sperm the way it should. It's called Azoospermia. And when he said that to me, it kind of like hit me, and I didn't really understand what he meant. It was almost like I was in this like fog of like, wait, what's going on? And like I almost like I just didn't believe or understand or comprehend what he was talking about. And then he kind of like said it more clearly, you know, the second time. And I think that's when it really dawned in on both of us and just hit hard, like a train. You know, that like, okay, our chances of having a biological family are really, really diminished. And the way that we had hoped to like start our family, or envisioned, I guess I could say, to start our family, because everyone just thinks like, you know, I'm gonna have a family with, you know, my spouse when I you know, grow up and get married. And that whole vision that we had completely just changed like within a second. Yeah, and neither one of us had even heard of Azoospermia before. I'd never even heard that word, and I'm sure a lot of you guys probably were in the same boat, that you were just, it's like a ton of brick just hit like like your stomach. It's hard to describe that feeling, and it's like the wind gets knocked out of you. Oh yeah, and I remember just sitting in that chair, like he was talking, but everything like Jared said, it's kind of just like a fog. Like here he is saying, so basically, and he's saying it so nonchalantly, which a lot of doctors, you know, they're delivering hard news a lot of the time, but it just felt so like, okay, yeah, you don't produce sperm. We're gonna have to find out the reason you don't, but basically your only option is using a donor. There's a possible surgery you can have, but you're gonna have to do IVF with a really small chance of it even working. Yeah, so basically our hopes of like, you know, doing IVF and all these success stories we've ever heard, and like we have so many friends that have done IVF, and you know, none of them were dealing with like Azoospermia, but like
we just knew that, like, for the most part, if we're going to do IVF, our chances were going to be pretty high. It's like successful.
And I think it was such a 180 because I went in there thinking, there's no way we're going to have to do IVF. Like, we've done so many tests, my levels look okay from what we've been told. Like, that was like worst case scenario was IVF in my mind.
That was,
and from going from, there's a chance you might not even be able to do IVF, like, and just hoping and like praying, going from not even thinking IVF to literally hoping we can have the chance to do IVF. It was such a crazy shift of thinking, like, and you guys, we were broken. I know we're talking about this right now.
You got to think, like, we've had like a long time to think about this, process this. We've gone through a lot of stuff since then, and so there is hope. Like, we have had the worst case scenario through all of this,
and we'll be going into future, like what we decide to do and all of that. And I know that'll be very emotional to go down that path, but this is. I mean, we videoed some of that, and it's just us in the car. We try and talk about it for a second, but I think we're still. You can just see the shock on our faces. But it is a lot to take in, and my heart just goes out to any of you guys that have gotten that news, have had that conversation with the doctor.
It is tough. It's tough to hear. It's tough to comprehend. But even if worst case scenario, you end up where we are, fast forward to our, position, it's not the end of the world.
Oh, yes.
We have recovered. We have healed. Like, there are scars that have healed over, and we feel bright for our future.
Yes, and I have to honestly say, I didn't ever know if I would feel this way. Like, in that moment.
And that's totally normal to feel.
Oh yeah. In that moment, you're hopeless. You feel so many emotions.
You're angry. You
can't believe it's happening to you. You're obviously grieving with your spouse, and people grieve in different ways. So there's like that dynamic as well. You're both trying to cope and grieve and figure out what's going to happen.
A little bit of denial.
And just the why us factor, I think that's really easy to go to as well. Like, why can they have kids and we can't have kids? Like, the comparison. There's just so much to it, and it's, for us at least with our journey, it was just like all at once, right there. It was so fast. It was so much to take on. And as Jared mentioned, you always envision what your future family is going to be like. And, that's just a natural thing everyone thinks about.
Oh, of course.
So this is not us saying, like, we're just talking about us in that moment, getting that news. Your mind doesn't just jump really quick to all the solutions. Like, we now there's so many amazing options you can have a family with. And
totally.
We'll get into all of that because there's so many beautiful ways, but in that moment you're not necessarily thinking that. You're just receiving that news. It's heartbreak. And
you definitely need time to like cope with the news and just like understand it. You need time to grieve it, and you also kind of need time alone. I think having friends and family, just a good support system, is really important and good, but at the same time, sometimes friends and family can say things that aren't things you want to hear. Like, they instantly try to go towards the solutions, like
words of comfort.
Words of comfort. And it's kind of like, you don't want words of comfort at the time. Like, that's how at least we felt. We didn't necessarily want those words of comfort, especially when it was kind of like, well, at least you can adopt, or maybe you can do donor. And it's just like, they're just trying to find solutions to this, and it's like, none of those things are going to help me like feel better now
immediately in that moment. And I think we've actually made a video about like what friends and family can do with those going through infertility, so if you're curious about that, you can go and watch that video. And people have good intentions, obviously. Our family seeing us go through this heartbreak, and our friends, like, it was devastating to them, and you don't know what to do because it is such a unique, like, because we said it's not talked about a lot, it's actually more common, but people don't know how common it is, so it's just hard to know what to say and be there. Also, one other piece of this, so in that appointment, the doctor was explaining that there were two types of azoospermia. There was obstructed azoospermia, meaning there was like a blockage, so that your body actually does produce sperm, but there's a blockage somewhere that it's not getting to where it needs to go. or non-obstructive, meaning it's like a production issue of some type. So, and there's various reasons for each of those that you can research more about. But basically he was like, you need to find out what type yours is, because I can't tell that. You're gonna have to go see a urologist, a specialist, to find that out. And so they referred us to a urologist that luckily we were able to meet with in a few days. So we didn't have like a long time, which...
We really lucked out. The guy was super nice, and he just so happens to be like one of the top in the country.
Oh, his name is Dr. Trost. He's in Orem, Utah. If you're looking for a really good expert with azoospermia, could not recommend him enough.
We'll link him down below, the whole
clinic. He was amazing. So we'll go into that whole thing in another video too, and why we love him so much. But basically we went and met with him, and he had some blood tests done before we met with him. And so he knew exactly that Jared's cause was non-obstructive, meaning...
So it was genetic.
Yes.
Like I was born with it, like there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, so basically I know it gets a little bit confusing, but for a lot of people, if they take certain hormones, it can help increase the production of sperm. But with Jared's, the cause of it, he was like, listen, I'm going to be really straight with you guys, like taking all these hormones aren't going to change Jared's outcome.
Yeah, so because when I got my blood tested, it came up with something like a genetic, you know, mutation, I guess you could say, that wasn't like normal. And basically what that told him right then and there is that it doesn't matter like what hormones you take, doesn't matter what you do, like nothing's going to change. And he said that you can get a surgery done, but the chances of it being successful are extremely little. Yeah,
so the surgery, and as many of you guys know, have probably heard the option, there's a tessie or a micro-tessie. And he said in our case that he would recommend the micro-tessie. That was our only chance of finding any sperm if there were any in there. And I do want to preface, this is not everyone's scenario. This was just our case. There's many reasons. There's many people who do take the hormones and it does help and it's successful.
I will say this, there's probably a lot of you that may be watching this video and your cases are going to be successful because it's not going to be as bad as ours.
Yes, it wasn't ours, or it could be just like ours. And I will say there are some doctors out there, especially overseas. He was telling us that it's more like a money grab. They give you like false hope, you could say, and it's depending on your condition and the reasons. So you need to talk to a doctor. This is just our experience.
If it's like blood, like DNA related, then maybe don't waste your money, don't waste your hope, you know, those sort of things. Don't waste your feelings. I like saying that just because like when you get so much hope built up for something that's not true, it can really damage you.
Oh yeah, and it was just like, and in that moment, I don't know if any of you are like this, but you're just thinking, okay, we will do anything, like what are the next steps? We will, you know, go to the end to try and make this happen. And anyway, so those are just some of our initial thoughts. So the next step for us was deciding whether to do the micro-tessie surgery or not. And as we said, I think a lot of people, they get their diagnosis and then they have a while and it's like kind of more of a gradual thing, or you start taking hormones. But for us, knowing that hormones weren't going to help, it was like, okay, well, do we need to really wait? Should we just try and get this done as soon as we can, especially we were already out in Utah? So
your doctor will tell you all of this, obviously, and we found all of this out within like a couple days.
Yes.
So we did decide that we wanted to go forward with surgery, and we'll get into that in another video.
Yeah, so we'll dive all into the micro-tessie video. There's a lot of factors that go into that, and now after being on the other side of it, I think there's a lot of things Jared wants to share, especially with going into that, and
I think maybe I would have done differently.
His experience and things like that. So if you do have any questions on that or anything else, comment them down below, and in our next video we'll try and address some of those questions. But I think, I mean, this video is going a little bit long, but hopefully you guys found this helpful. Hopefully some of it is relatable. Our hearts go out to any of you that are going through this incredibly difficult road. But as Jared mentioned, you guys, it gets better, time heals. And I do have to say, I know we haven't announced how we are going to be expanding our family, but God is in the details. God has been with us through this whole thing, and sometimes you wonder why us, as we mentioned, and why is this happening to us. I'm here to tell you that it's all going to work out, and it's all going to work out how it's supposed to. It's giving me cold chills right now, but
Yeah, no, it really is, and it's not like our situation is proved. It's not like I can magically like have kids, or like all of a sudden there's been some DNA or stem cell research. It's none of that, you know. And the fact that we can move forward with like, you know, faith and happiness and hope, and we're like totally fine
and at peace
yeah.
is a big thing.
Yeah,
we're happy again. We're smiling.
Yeah.
So if anything else, you guys just know it might take some time, but you will get there. We're excited to share the next pieces of our journey, and especially how we're moving on. So I think we've covered mostly everything we wanted to on the Azoospermia piece. Our next video is going to be all about micro-testes surgery, so buckle up for that one, and we'll see you all next time.
See you guys. Love you. Bye.